It started with turbulence, inside the plane and inside her life. Elizabeth, Lizzy to those who truly knew her, was 32, confident yet quietly adrift. Success had been her compass for so long that she had forgotten what it felt like to be surprised. Now she sat in seat 2B on a red-eye from New York to London, business-class blanket folded neatly over her lap, watching the city's necklace of lights dissolve into clouds. She had promised herself she would rest. Instead, she opened her laptop and stared at a slide deck that felt colder than the cabin air. Promotions, numbers, projections, all the ways she measured her worth. The hum of the engines filled the silence she pretended not to feel. Then came the voice. Long night already. Deep, assured, too warm for corporate small talk. She turned. The man beside her looked like gravity had claimed him gently. Mid-50s, salt and pepper hair, suit tailored in quiet luxury, cufflinks glinting like stolen moonlight. His eyes, gray but not cold, studied her the way an artist studies a painting he's not ready to sign. Something like that, she answered, voice low, polite. I used to think sleepless flights were punishment, he said, until I realized they're second chances to meet someone interesting. She almost laughed, almost, but there was no arrogance in his tone, only curiosity. They spoke, at first about weather, schedules, the polite nothings travelers trade when trapped together above the world. Then the words drifted deeper, books they both loved, cities that changed them, mistakes that shaped them. He told her he was in investments, vague but elegant. She guessed he was the kind of man who owned more companies than business cards. Hours dissolved. Cabin lights dimmed. The outside world became a blur of stars. Their conversation slowed to a rhythm that matched the engines. When turbulence struck, the plane dipped sharply. Lizzy's hand gripped the armrest. His hand found hers. Neither spoke. The contact was brief but electric, skin against skin, reassurance against fear. When the shaking passed, he didn't let go immediately, and she didn't pull away. By the time they landed, dawn spilled gold through the windows, and something unspoken shimmered between them. At baggage claim, she said, "Thank you for the company." He smiled, not flirtatious, just impossibly kind. Until the next flight. She didn't expect a next flight. Yet later that day, her phone buzzed. If you're free tonight, I owe you dinner for surviving turbulence with style. She stared at the message longer than she should have, then replied. Only if you promise no turbulence this time. The restaurant he chose overlooked the Thames, all glass and candlelight. The waiter greeted him by name. He stood as she arrived, pulling out her chair, a gesture from another century. Over wine, conversation bloomed easily. He made her laugh, not loudly, but deeply. The kind of laughter that forgets caution. He asked about her work and listened as if every word mattered. When she mentioned never having time for herself, he said, "Then tonight, time belongs to you." He said it simply, but it felt like a promise. Dinner turned into dessert, dessert into a walk along the river. The city gleamed wet from rain, reflections stretched like liquid fire. When she slipped slightly on the pavement, he caught her elbow. Her breath hitched, his lingered. At her hotel door, he didn't ask to come in. He simply said, "I'm glad the storm found us both on the same flight." That night she couldn't sleep. Every sound, the rain, the distant hum of traffic, seemed to echo his voice. It wasn't infatuation, it was awareness. An awakening she hadn't expected at 32. Over the following weeks, London became a backdrop for something that felt like destiny rehearsing itself. Text messages, coffee meetings that lasted too long, dinners that blurred into midnight. He never demanded her time. He requested it like a gentleman who already knew the answer. And when he touched her hand across the table, she swore the air shifted. Lizzy tried to rationalize it, the age gap, the timing, her career. But emotions didn't care for spreadsheets. She began waiting for his messages the way she once waited for sunrise after sleepless nights. One evening, he sent an address and nothing else. It was a rooftop bar, quiet, candlelit, with the city glowing below. He stood near the edge, jacket unbuttoned, wind teasing his hair. When she arrived, he looked at her as though the world had finally shown him color again. They spoke softly, voices blending with music. At one point, she confessed she didn't know why she felt drawn to him. He smiled. Maybe because some connections aren't logical, they're remembered. Before she could ask what he meant, he brushed a strand of hair from her face. His touch was feather-light, respectful yet intimate. And for the first time, she didn't think about tomorrow. She simply felt. That night ended with nothing but a promise. Silent, unspoken, waiting to be kept. They began to orbit each other like planets caught in the same gravitational pull, too close to drift away, too enchanted to collide. Days became weeks, then months measured not in calendars, but in stolen hours. Lizzy stopped counting meetings and started remembering moments. She could recall the sound of his voice over the phone more easily than the sound of her alarm. Their connection unfolded quietly, deliberately, like an old film reel spinning in sepia. He never rushed her. He treated every encounter as if time itself would wait its turn. And time obeyed. London turned into their playground of secrets. Cafes tucked between old brick alleys. Galleries that smelled of dust and oil paint. Rooftop gardens that overlooked a city shimmering in rain. Alexander had a way of making every moment feel intentional. When he walked beside her, he never hurried. When he spoke, his words sank deep. When he looked at her, it felt like he was seeing something sacred. He'd call her Elizabeth when he wanted her attention, Lizzy when he wanted her heart. One night, they sat beneath the flickering glow of the South Bank lights. The city murmured around them. He poured them each a glass of red wine from a bottle he'd smuggled past a waiter who owed him favors. "To turbulence," he said. She laughed softly. "I thought you hated turbulence." He smiled. "Not anymore." Their glasses clinked. His hand brushed hers. The contact lingered, neither of them pretending it was accidental anymore. That night, when he kissed her for the first time, the world outside London's skyline simply ceased to exist. It wasn't a kiss born of hunger. It was recognition. A slow, deliberate discovery. Like two souls finally finding a rhythm they'd always known. When they parted, she didn't say a word. Neither did he. They didn't need to. The silence between them said everything. It was in Venice. Another impulsive getaway he arranged for clarity, he'd said. The city floated on water and mystery, candlelight flickering across canals. They took a gondola at sunset, the sound of distant violins melting into the air. He told her about his favorite places in the world, about lessons learned too late, about regrets he was finally ready to forgive himself for. She listened, heart wide open, realizing she was falling in love, terribly, irrevocably, beautifully in love. When they reached the end of the canal, he leaned in close. His lips brushed her ear as he whispered, "Sometimes I think I found you too late." She turned to him. "No," she said, "right on time." They kissed again, slower this time, deeper, the kind of kiss that made the world stop spinning. It should have felt wrong. It didn't. In the days that followed, their connection deepened into something neither could disguise. He began calling her in the mornings just to hear her voice. She began sleeping with her phone beside her pillow. Every time they met, it felt like home disguised as luxury. He'd take her to quiet villas, private dinners, midnight drives through the city. He learned how she took her coffee, what made her laugh uncontrollably, the way her hand trembled slightly when she was excited. And she learned his habits too, the way he loosened his tie when deep in thought, the way he always stood facing the door, as though the world had taught him to expect intrusions. It was passion, yes, but also tenderness. Two souls finding comfort in the spaces where they were most afraid to be known. She didn't know where it would lead, and she didn't care. For the first time in years, Lizzy wasn't thinking about tomorrow. She was living today. And love, real love, was finally starting to feel like hers. What she didn't know was that this love, this impossible, luminous connection, would soon carry a secret heavy enough to shatter everything they'd built. That truth waited just around the corner. But for now, in this moment, it was only them. And it was perfect. The weekend in Venice had left a mark she couldn't hide. Even her reflection looked different, softer somehow, brighter. But in the silence of her apartment, that brightness turned into ache. Alexander had kissed her goodbye at the airport, fingertips tracing the outline of her wrist before letting go. Soon, he'd whispered. Soon. She repeated the word like a prayer, not knowing how soon fate would test what they'd built. 2 days later, her father called. Elizabeth, you're not skipping the gala again this year, are you? His voice carried its usual mix of affection and command, the tone of a man used to being obeyed. She hadn't seen him in nearly 4 months, always blamming deadlines, always avoiding the weight of his expectations. I'll be there, she promised, though a part of her dreaded it. The annual charity gala had always been her father's world. Old money, polished floors, men with firm handshakes, and women who smiled like porcelain. She, grown up in those circles, but they never felt like hers. Still, she owed him her presence. And maybe, a secret part of her admitted she wanted to tell him she'd met someone. Not yet by name, but enough to see the look in his eyes when she spoke of love. She almost called Alexander to ask if he could come, but something stopped her. He'd been quiet lately, traveling, he said, dealing with business matters that couldn't wait. His last text had been simple, "Miss you more than I should." She smiled every time she read it. The ballroom shimmered like a dream she didn't want to enter. Gold chandeliers spilled light across marble floors. Champagne flutes chimed. Waiters glided between crowds like chess pieces on a board of wealth and whispers. Lizzy arrived late, wrapped in a gown the color of deep wine, her hair pulled into a soft wave that framed her face. Heads turned when she walked in, not because of the dress, but because she carried a glow that even the diamonds around her couldn't compete with. Her father spotted her instantly. "There's my girl," he said, kissing her forehead. "Finally not chained to your laptop." "Just for tonight," she teased. He laughed, proud and unsuspecting. "Good. There's someone I want you to meet. He's been my friend for over 30 years, an extraordinary man." He turned to the crowd, searching. Lizzy followed his gaze, her heartbeat quickening for reasons she couldn't explain. Then she froze. Across the room, under the golden light of the chandeliers, stood Alexander. The same Alexander whose name still lingered like perfume on her skin. The same man who had kissed her in Venice, who whispered love across oceans. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, everything, music, laughter, air, disappeared. Her father's voice broke the silence. "Lizzy, meet Alexander, my oldest friend, the man who practically helped raise you from afar." Alexander's face didn't move, but his knuckles whitened around his champagne glass. "We've met," he said softly. The room spun. Lizzy's pulse thundered in her ears. The words didn't fit together, her father's best friend. No. No, it couldn't be. Her father smiled, oblivious. "Good, then you two already know each other. I was hoping you'd get along." Get along. If only he knew. Alexander managed a polite laugh, his mask flawless. "Your daughter is remarkable, Charles. I can see where she gets it." Her father chuckled proudly. "She's my pride and joy." Lizzy forced a smile that felt like glass cutting against her teeth. "Excuse me," she murmured, before slipping away into the crowd. He found her outside minutes later, on the terrace overlooking the city. Cold wind tangled through her hair. "Lizzy." "Don't," her voice shook. "Please don't say my name right now." He exhaled, stepping closer but not touching her. "I didn't know. I swear to you I had no idea." She turned, eyes glistening. "You expect me to believe that you never once mentioned my last name to your best friend of 30 years. "I never connected the two," he said, his voice raw with emotion. He closed his eyes, pain flickering across his face. "If I'd known." "You would have stopped," she cut in. "Would you really have stopped?" Silence answered her. Because they both knew the truth. Even if they had known, they wouldn't have. The pull between them had never asked for permission. Tears stung her eyes. "My father adores you. Do you understand what this means if he finds out?" "I do," his voice broke. That's why this ends now. Her chest tightened. You're ending it. He hesitated. I have to. Her anger melted into heartbreak. Then, why does it hurt so much when you say it? He reached for her hand, hesitated, then let it fall. Because it's the only thing I don't want to do. For a long moment, neither spoke. The city stretched out below them, bright, indifferent. When he finally walked away, she stayed where she was, staring at the skyline until it blurred. Inside, laughter continued. Her father was still somewhere in that room, proud and oblivious. And Lizzy, for the first time in years, wished she didn't know what love felt like. The following evening, she sat at the long dining table she'd grown up around, the same one where her father once helped her with homework. The air smelled of rosemary and roasted lamb. Every detail felt normal, except the pulse hammering in her chest. When Alexander arrived, she felt the shift before she saw him. His voice, steady, polite, familiar, filled the foyer like a ghost returning home. He stepped into the room. Their eyes met briefly, a lifetime of emotion exchanged in one silent glance. Alexander, her father said, clapping his shoulder, you remember my daughter. Of course, he said quietly. How could I forget? Dinner passed like a performance neither had rehearsed for. Her father talked, oblivious, while Lizzy pushed food around her plate, and Alexander responded with perfect restraint. Every word was careful, every glance stolen. At one point, her father rose to take a call. The instant the door shut, the air cracked between them. Why did you come? She whispered. I had to, he said. He asked. I couldn't refuse without raising questions. Then at least act like you don't. Don't what? His voice was low, trembling. Don't still love you. Her breath caught. Stop. I've tried. He leaned closer. God help me, I've tried. Footsteps approached. They straightened instantly, masks sliding back into place. Her father returned, smiling, holding 2 glasses of wine. You two seem to get along, he said. Neither replied. That night when she lay in bed, the memory of his voice followed her. Not the words, but the sound, the heartbreak tucked behind control. She wanted to hate him. She couldn't. She wanted to forget him. She didn't. And deep down, despite everything, she knew one thing with terrifying clarity. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. Not yet. The days that followed the gala were unbearable. Every text from Alexander was measured, cautious, almost painful in its restraint. Every time she caught sight of him, at family events, business meetings, or in the background of her father's world, her chest clenched, her pulse rising as if gravity itself pulled her toward him. And yet, every moment apart was a test neither of them could fully endure. Alexander didn't call her for 2 full days. Each hour was torture. Finally, a message appeared. Meet me tonight, somewhere private, we need to talk. She went, heart hammering, mind racing. The city's streets blurred around her, neon lights shimmering off wet asphalt like diamonds she could never touch. He waited in a quiet loft above the city. The skyline sprawled behind him, glass walls reflecting the pulse of their emotions. When she entered, he didn't say anything. He simply closed the door, walked across the room, and pulled her into his arms. Don't leave me, he whispered. She trembled in his embrace. We can't. Yes, we can, he interrupted softly, tilting her chin so their eyes met. I've loved you too long to turn back now, even if it's forbidden. Her breath caught. You're my father's friend, it's wrong. I've been wrong for decades, Lizzy, he said, but being wrong never felt this right. They kissed. This time it wasn't careful. It was urgent, desperate, electric. All restraint vanished. Every heartbeat, every thought, every doubt was consumed by the fire between them. The next morning, she knew there was no more hiding. They had to confront reality or risk losing everything. At lunch, they met in the park where they first walked together in London. Alexander took her hands in his eyes pleading. I can't lie to you, he said, and I can't lie to your father. I don't care about him, Lizzy said fiercely. I care about us, I care about you. He swallowed hard. Then we fight, together, against every expectation, every judgment, but we need to be smart. They made a pact, not just of love, but of strategy. Every family dinner, every public gathering, every passing glance from acquaintances became a careful dance. But in private, in secret apartments, penthouse balconies, and hidden cafes, they were unstoppable. Weeks passed with whispers of danger. Her father's intuition sparked suspicions, small observations, like lingering looks or inside jokes Alexander couldn't hide. One evening, at another family gathering, her father finally said, "You too, there's something there, isn't there?" Lizzy froze. Alexander's hand brushed hers under the table. Her heart pounded. "Yes," she said finally, "there is, and I can't hide it anymore." Her father looked at Alexander. "Do you know what this means?" Alexander swallowed. "Yes, and I accept it. I've loved her for longer than I can even remember, and I'm not letting that end because it's complicated." For a heartbeat, time stopped. The air crackled. And then her father laughed loud, rich, warm. "Complicated? You have no idea. But if she makes you happy, you have my blessing. Take care of her." Lizzy's eyes widened. Alexander's lips curved into a victorious, tender smile. After the tension lifted, the lovers' world transformed. Days were filled with stolen mornings over coffee, evenings walking through city streets lit by lamplight, nights wrapped around each other with whispers and soft laughter. Alexander spoiled her, not with excess, but with attention, thoughtfulness, and devotion. Weekend escapes became a ritual. Hidden corners of the world were theirs alone. They danced under rain, laughed in penthouses, and wrote love letters no one would ever read. Every stolen moment was a celebration of a love that had survived secrecy, judgment, and fear.